Joining me now with more on the situation in Syria and the UN's weapons report is Kyle Olson. He's an expert on weapons of mass destruction and the former vice president of the Chemical and Biological Arms Control Institute. They're pushing for a Security Council resolution. If you were to help craft it, what would be the features of it?
I think there are several things you want to look at. First of all, you want to make sure that the deadlines that are stipulated, the deadline for declarations, the deadline for turning the weapons over, for facilitating the access to the weapons by inspectors, all of those things are guaranteed. All of those things are secured by the government of the Assad regime, and also that there is, in a perfect world, you're looking for some sort of not just the incentives, but also the stick at the back end. If I'm the United States, I do not want to have my options precluded to, if necessary, launch a strike to remind them why they're here in the first place.
I suspect if we had a perfect world, we wouldn't even be talking about this. But you were a key contributor to the book Shadows in Substance, the Chemical Weapons Convention. And the reason I bring it up is because I was reading the foreword today, and it had some really provocative questions. And one of them stuck in my head. Can compliance be effectively verified? And that's really a key question here. Can it be?
100% verification is 100% impossible. On the other hand, you can certainly pursue a very high probability of success that you're identifying where most of the materials are. An individual chemical weapon, a very small cache, you might be able to successfully hide that from an inspection regime. But the reality is that we're talking about thousands of pounds, millions of pounds of chemical agents and weapons. Those are not the kinds of things that you simply hide in somebody's basement. So the vast majority of the stockpile, the Assyrians have actually done a pretty good job of keeping them secure. Keeping them secure means they put an investment in place from a point of view of guards, of storage facilities, of monitoring systems. Those are the kinds of things that are going to jump out. So the weapons we will probably find. Whether or not we will successfully lock down the know-how that the Syrian government used to build the weapons in the first place, that's an entirely different problem.
You know, it seems like we've seen this acted out before. You hear the word brutal dictator, that was used with Saddam Hussein as well. There was the UN search for weapons of mass destruction there as well. And there was a lot of talk about a cat and mouse game being played where, you know, items being moved around. Is that a concern as well? And what's the likelihood of that?
I think it is a concern. The cat and mouse game was never as successful, though, as I think some of the media played it up to being. The very act of concealing where some of these weapons or some of these research documents were stashed was, in itself, almost giving some things away. And also keep in mind that we were looking, in Saddam Hussein's case, we were looking for the technology, we were looking for the scientists, we were looking for the research facilities. In this case, we know that there are thousands upon thousands of missiles and shells and storage containers with these materials. That's what we're going to be looking for first and foremost here. It's not about wiping out an illicit weapons program. They've basically declared they have a weapons program. They're going to identify where that weapons program was developed, who those scientists are. All of that should be in the declarations. We'll have access to that. So the cat and mouse game undoubtedly will get played to some degree, but whether or not they're going to be successful is an entirely different question.
Are there lessons learned from Iraq and Libya? Because in the case of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi's dead, and then mustard gas is found after his death, and everyone thought that all of the material had been secured there. Anything to be learned or gleaned from those two episodes?
Several things. First of all, you're going to find materials for years. I mean, we will still find materials in Libya, I'm confident. There are probably odd quantities even still in Iraq somewhere sitting in a forgotten bunker. In Syria, because of the volume that we're talking about, we've got to assume that we're not going to find, again, 100% of the weapons, but we're going to find the majority. And if we can devalue it to the point where, you know, an odd weapon here or there is a problem, but it's not a threat. And that's one of the lessons to take away.
And yet the fighting will continue, chemical weapons or not.
Chemical weapons are only a very small part of the overall problem.
Kyle Olson, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.